Hello, firefighters. What a pleasure. What a pleasure and honor to be with you today. Thank you, Mr. Walker. I've got to salute your General President, Edward Kelly, from Boston, and Andy Pantelis, who's from Maryland. And I'm psyched to be here with all of the members of the IAFF. I think Mr. Walker mentioned that I was a professor of constitutional law before I got into politics, and I thought I would start with a little excerpt from the Constitution just to tell you where I think the power in America actually lies and where it should lie, okay? Because I've left Capitol Hill, where I was with the powers that be. Now I'm at the IAF with the powers that ought to be in America. But in the preamble to the Constitution, it says, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect what? Union. A union, right? Not a more perfect government or more perfect corporation, a more perfect union. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and preserve to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of liberty, do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States." A more perfect union. So I've come to greet a more perfect union. You guys are getting better every year. I come out to see you. A more perfect union. And we've got a lot to fight for, starting with the SAFER Act in the House of Representatives. We're going to get that done. It passed overwhelmingly in the Senate, and we don't want it to get caught up in the paralysis and the stranglehold and the ideological cross currents in the House. Let's just pass the SAFER Act. Let's get it done for America's firefighters. I'm also a proud co-sponsor of the Federal Firefighter Pay Equity Act, H.R. 1235. And, you know, we've got a lot of federal firefighters. Not everybody knows about that. I don't know if anybody is here from NIH, my constituents up in Maryland, but we've got a little federal fire station there. But this bill would improve the pay equity between federal firefighters and other federal employees and municipal and public sector firefighters. It would enhance the recruitment and retention of firefighters in order to get the best talent on the federal fire service, and it would include the pay of all regularly reoccurring scheduled hours during the firefighter work week when computing such retirement benefits of firefighters. So we're just behind with the federal firefighter workforce. We got to catch up. We got to establish a regular work week for federal firefighters, and that's something we're working hard to get done. We want to pass the Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act, the PFAS Alternatives Act, the Public Safety Free Speech Act, and the Public Safety Employer-Employee Cooperation Act. We can move things forward in this Congress when we work together. And I want to just say something about partisanship, which has gotten, so severe and polarized in the country. And I'm not somebody who gets up and denounces partisanship all the time, because I understand the role that partisanship plays in a free society, right? One easy way to get rid of political partisanship is you get rid of political parties. That's what Vladimir Putin is doing in Russia. That's what Orban's doing in Hungary. If you don't want a lot of partisan division, well, just get rid of the parties and we'll move to a one-party state, a dictator. That's obviously not going to work for us. In some sense, political parties are a sign of the health of a democracy. They're kind of like oxygen. The parties organize people, speak to people. On the other hand, when people elevate the party above the country, that's a problem. Because when we're in a campaign, then we got our party hats on. But after the election's over and someone wins and we swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, at that point, our loyalty flows not to our party, but to our country, to everybody. We represent everybody there. And I tell my colleagues, and I told my colleagues this when I led the House impeachment managers over to the Senate in February of 2021, after the violent insurrection at the Capitol. And I told my colleagues this, I said that there is a role for political parties, but we swear an oath to the Constitution and to the country itself against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And in that capacity, the senators were serving as jurors who had to render an impartial verdict, a word very similar to nonpartisan. And I say it's not always easy because so much of what happens in government is we get into our partisan caucuses, our party caucuses, and then we're just thinking in terms of party. But as members of Congress, we know what it means to be nonpartisan, and I'll tell you how we know it. If you come to my district office in beautiful Rockville, Maryland, and you've got a problem with Social Security or Medicare, you got a problem with getting COVID-19 money, you have a problem with a passport, we will go and fight for you as long as you live in my district. We don't ask, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Are you libertarian? Are you a Green? Are you independent? We don't care about any of that stuff. We go to work for you because you're part of the country. And I think that when we're looking at basic issues of public policy, like the rights of federal firefighters, like how we're going to build the best public sector workforce, we should take our party hats off and we should put our American citizen hats on. We should be thinking about what's good for everybody in America. In fact, as a gesture of bipartisanship, I will even invoke our last great Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, who spoke of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's the beautiful, tantalizing ideal of America, that we have a government that serves the people. And if you have people in public office who think that they're not there to serve you, but you're there to serve them, they've misunderstood the whole thing. Those of us who aspire and attain to public office in America are nothing but the servants of the people. And the moment that we begin to act like kings and queens and lords and dictators, that is the moment to evict, eject, reject, impeach, convict, and start all over again. This is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. There's no democracy without a labor movement. You can look at it historically, and there's no labor movement without democracy. The first thing that the autocrats and the kleptocrats and the plutocrats and the theocrats do when they get into office is they bust the labor movement, which has always been the central stalwart force for democracy in our country and all over the world. So, my friends, these are tough times. We got to hang tough for democracy. We got to hang tough for the labor movement. We got to hang tough for the firefighters. And I am proud to be your ally. I'll leave you with the words of two of my favorite great patriots for democracy. One, Frederick Douglass of Maryland, who was born into slavery about an hour away from here at the Wye River Plantation. And he escaped from slavery to become a great freedom fighter and champion of the Union and Reconstruction after the Civil War. And Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And the struggle may be moral, it may be physical, it may be moral and physical, but there must be struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. A message to you from Frederick Douglass and the people of Maryland. And I'll close with the words of the great globe-trotting, revolutionary democracy freedom fighter Tom Paine, who got to America in 1774 and fell in love with the promise of our country. He said that if America lived up to the promise of its ideals, set forth in the Declaration of Independence. If it lived up to the promise of its ideals, it would become an asylum to humanity. Not an insane asylum, mind you, okay? But a place of refuge for people seeking freedom from political and religious and economic oppression all over the world. And he wrote common sense. And by that, he said he meant the sense that you have even if you don't have a PhD in theology from the Princeton Seminary. The sense that we all have, in fact, the common sense is the sense we have when we reason together, when we're willing to speak and listen together and reason together and arrive at reasonable solutions, not based on paranoia and ideology and conspiracy theory and all that. Common sense, he said. And the revolution began, really sparked by his pamphlet, Common Sense. But it was a tough time, and a lot of people were walking around saying, you know, you can't beat the kings and the queens and the dictators and the autocrats. You've got to bow down to them. You got to bow down to the lords who've governed forever. Because most people forever had lived under dictators like Vladimir Putin or President Xi in China or Orban or Erdogan. That was the fate of humanity. America started on a different principle, that we could govern ourselves and protect everybody's freedom and everybody's opportunity. So anyway, the revolution began, and it was tough, and a lot of people were saying, I don't know if we can really beat these people. I don't know if it's really possible to beat the dictators and the bullies. And Paine wanted to write a pamphlet to give people hope. And he wrote this pamphlet called The Crisis. I'm going to update the language pursuant to instructions from Nancy Pelosi, who said Tom Paine was a feminist, and he wouldn't mind. And so I don't want to offend modern sensibilities, so I'm going to change it a little bit, but I don't think he would mind. But anyway, he said, these are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause and their country. But everyone that stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation. The more difficult the struggle, the more glorious in the end will be our victory. Let's make that victory ours in 2024, firefighters. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.